Welcome to my channel to listen to sinister stories. Once I settled into my bunk bed, Marco and Lucio began discussing some strange topics that made me feel uneasy. They spoke in hushed tones about dark rituals and mysterious disappearances that had occurred in Rome. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end as their conversation grew more sinister. As the night wore on, I started to doze off, trying to ignore the creepy atmosphere created by the brothers. Suddenly, I was jolted awake by the sound of whispers coming from the corner of the room. I strained my ears to listen, and my heart raced when I realized it was Marco and Lucio speaking in a foreign language that I couldn't. Fear consumed me as I glanced at the other two beds in the room. They were empty. I had no idea where the other guests had gone. Sensing my unease, Marco and Lucio turned their attention towards me. Their eyes glinted with a malevolent intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I mustered up the courage to confront them, asking where the other guests had disappeared to, but my words fell on deaf ears as they continued their eerie conversation. Something wasn't right. I felt trapped in a room with two dangerous strangers who had a connection to the dark underbelly of Rome. As I made my way towards the door, prepared to escape from this nightmare, Marco and Lucio suddenly lunged at me as I realized the true nature of this hostile experience. These brothers were not mere travelers, but something far more sinister. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I fought back with everything I had, desperately trying to survive. The sound of desperate screams echoed through the hostel, but it seemed that no one would come to my rescue. The realization dawned on me that this place harbored a darkness that couldn't be escaped. Through sheer luck and determination, I managed to break free from their clutches and sprinted towards the exit. Adrenaline fueled my every step as I raced through the labyrinthine hallways, searching for a way out. Finally, I burst through the front doors, gasping for breath, didn't look back. In the aftermath of that terrifying night, I vowed to never step foot in another hostel again. The experience had forever tainted my perception of these seemingly innocent accommodations. From that moment on, the mere thought of sharing a room with strangers filled me with dread, knowing that danger could lurk in the shadows. This chilling encounter serves as a cautionary tale for all solo travelers seeking the convenience and affordability of hostels. Darkness can thrive in the most unexpected places, and it is crucial to stay vigilant and trust your instincts. The true horrors of the world often hide behind false smiles and friendly facades, waiting for their next victim in the unsuspecting depths of a hostel. After becoming acquainted with them in English, the two brothers began conversing in Italian, unaware that I understood their language. To my horror, it became apparent that they were talking about me and laughing at my expense. Marco, one of the brothers, referred to me as a foolish white boy. Though I could have confronted them immediately in Italian, I decided to maintain the illusion of not understanding. Eventually, the two brothers left their beds and exited the room, with Lucio smiling and waving at me as they departed. It struck me that they hadn't taken their luggage with them, leading me to believe it was stored in the garden shed. Curiosity took hold, and I ventured out to the garden area where I encountered some fellow friendly tourists who were also staying at the hostel. After engaging in conversation, I embarked on my exploration of the city, heading towards the city center. Hours passed, and I indulged in 2 food stops before returning to the hostel, expecting to find fellow guests socializing in the lounge or the back garden. To my dismay, there was no one in sight. It was already 9 p.m., so I decided to retire early. I cannot recall when I fell asleep, but what I do remember is the chilling discovery that awaited me. The room remained shrouded in darkness, yet I could hear whispers piercing the silence. The brothers had returned. Paralyzed with fear, I remained motionless, intently listening to their conversation in Italian. One of them uttered something that roughly translated to "just grab it, or are you gonna do it?" Although unsure of its exact meaning, a sense of apprehension washed over me. I anticipated the sound of my luggage being moved before revealing my wakefulness. However, instead of expected movements, I felt the touch of a cold, damp cloth pressed against my face, emitting a sickeningly sweet odor. It was already 9 p.m., so I decided to retire early. I cannot recall when I fell asleep, but what I do remember is the chilling discovery that awaited me. The room remained shrouded in darkness, yet I could hear whispers piercing the silence. The brothers had returned, paralyzed with fear. I remained motionless, intently listening to their conversation in Italian. One of them uttered something that roughly translated to just grab it, or are you gonna do it? Although unsure of its exact meaning, a sense of apprehension washed over me. I anticipated the sound of my luggage being moved before revealing my wakefulness. However, instead of expected movements, I felt the touch of a cold, damp cloth pressed against my face, emitting a sickeningly sweet odor. Instinctively, I yelled and swatted the cloth away, but as I turned to face my assailant, the room was shrouded in darkness, making identification impossible. Suddenly, the man who had tried to subdue me leaped onto the lower bed, his intentions ominous. Fueled by adrenaline, I fought back, kicking him forcefully and shouting for assistance. The other brother intervened, dragging his accomplice away from me, and the two assailants abruptly fled the room. Quivering with fear, I swiftly retrieved my bag and shoes, rushing to the front desk in search of help. The hostel staff member on duty confirmed witnessing the two men leaving the premises, but had no records of their stay. These nefarious locals had been preying on unsuspecting visitors, attempting to rob them. They had even resorted to chloroforming their victims. Naturally, I could not remain in such a perilous environment, deciding to leave the hostel immediately. Undoubtedly, they have since amplified their security measures. Nevertheless, this incident instilled in me a newfound vigilance when choosing accommodations. On another occasion, I traveled alone to Miami Beach for the Art Basel event, seeking a reprieve from the cold. My friend Maya and her boyfriend were scheduled to join me, but due to budget constraints, I opted to stay at a hostel called Bikini Hostel, located in the heart of Miami Beach. The hostel was bustling with activity, filled with young individuals in their 20s. Some came in groups, while others, like myself, embarked on solo adventures. My time spent at the hostel was limited, primarily serving as a place to rest. The establishment provided lockers for secure storage, offering peace of mind throughout the day. However, it was during the first night that I encountered fellow roommates and experienced an unsettling series of events. Assigned to a mixed-gender dorm, I found myself as the sole female occupant. While initially unfazed by the arrangement, I focused on the cost-saving aspect rather than socializing. I crossed paths with 3 of the unknown number of guests occupying the room. The following morning, as I awakened, my immediate concern was the whereabouts of my phone, which I believed I had left on the bed. Despite an extensive search, it was nowhere to be found. Suspicion arose, pointing towards one of the roommates potentially taking it. Desperate for answers, I questioned each occupant, urging them to call my missing phone to ascertain its presence. Unfortunately, my efforts proved futile. Doubt began to cloud my mind, questioning if I had indeed brought the phone back to the room. I borrowed a fellow roommate's phone to contact my friend Maya and inform her about the situation while arranging to meet her for brunch. Continuing my search, I scoured the entire room once again, thoroughly checked the locker in my bag, but my phone remained elusive, a perplexing situation with no logical explanation. Determined not to let this incident ruin my trip, I journeyed to the convention center where Art Basel took place. Hours later, Mia and I enjoyed a late lunch or early dinner before venturing to a couple of bars. During one of these outings, I accessed Find My iPhone on Maya's device, discovering that my missing phone's location had shifted, indicating its presence in close proximity to us. Hope surged within me, believing that perhaps someone intended to return it. Nonetheless, inquiries made with the front desk and fellow hostel residents yielded no results. No one had come forward, accepting responsibility for the disappearance. As darkness descended, I returned to the hostel to change clothes. Unease gripped me during the walk back, as I detected a persistent presence and unsettling figure seemingly tailing my every step. Though this individual remained oblivious to my awareness, my suspicion festered. Upon entering the room, I hastily messaged Maya to call my phone immediately. In response, a vibrating sound echoed from a pocket or a bed. My gaze darted towards the suspicious figure, who met my stare, acknowledging the revelation. Without hesitation, I shouted, demanding the return of my phone. Support of the other two occupants in the room strengthened my resolve as we confronted the man who had been tailing me. The atmosphere turned tense as they demanded he empty his pockets, revealing the truth behind the ongoing ordeal. In the eerie depths of the night, restlessness intertwined with trepidation as a sinister presence lurked within the shadows. Unbeknownst to me, a faceless figure closely trailed my every move, mastering the art of deception. Sensing a growing unease, I demanded that the intruder relinquish my phone, which he reluctantly surrendered. However, a chilling revelation surfaced as suspicions took hold. This malevolent stranger had been surreptitiously tailing me throughout the day, deliberately withholding possession of my phone. Likely misappropriated while I slumbered. Alarmed, I seized the opportunity to expose his nefarious intent, rallying the support of two newfound allies, the venerable Mark and Paulo. Together, we embarked on a journey to rendezvous with Maya, our minds heavy with ever-mounting dread. Grateful for the companionship of Mark and Paulo, I shuddered to contemplate the ominous alternate reality that might have awaited me had their stalwart presence wavered. A poignant lesson emerged from this spine-chilling encounter, a warning to safeguard one's possessions and maintain unwavering vigilance while sojourning in hostels, where malevolence can masquerade amongst the unsuspecting. Roused by this unprecedented disturbance, I implore all to exercise heightened awareness of their surroundings, lest they fall prey to the enigmatic forces that dwell in the darkness. This happened in the summer, and I believe I was about 12 at the time. I was staying in a hotel in a fairly large city with my mom and my younger brother. We were visiting other extended family, but chose not to stay in their house. My brother is younger than me by a decent amount, so I was usually told to keep an eye on him on the day we arrived. My mom told me to do just that while she checked us in and received our room card. So my brother and hotel pool, we all went to our room, changed, and went to the pool a few minutes after we got into the water. The same man from before walked in and sat down. He was wearing jeans and a sweater, so he definitely wasn't going swimming again. We didn't think much of it until I could see that my mom was visibly worried. She pointed him out to me, and she said that if he didn't leave within 5 minutes, we needed to go back to our rooms. 5 minutes passed, and he was still there, so we got our things and left. By then, it was close to 8 o'clock. We had brought a rented movie to watch, so we planned to watch that and go straight to bed. I noticed that my mom was a little on edge because of the man who had been watching us, and I got a little more worried myself. Halfway through the movie, my mom got up to get into the shower while she was in there. Someone knocked on the door and said housekeeping. I thought it was weird that the cleaning staff would come this late, but we needed another towel, so I answered the door. I wish I hadn't been so stupid. It was the same creepy man. He gave me a smile and a little wave. I just stood there kind of motionless. My mind automatically went to the worst possible situation: kidnapping, rape, torture, etc. I heard the water in the shower turn off. I sat down on a couch in the lobby and relaxed a little bit while we were sitting. A man in about his mid-40s walked into the hotel. The couch was facing the hotel doors, so I got a good look at him. I remember that he was very average looking. Describing his features in detail could generate several different images. The guy comes in and sits on the couch opposite ours. I didn't think anything of it until I realized he didn't go up to the counter first. He just came in and sat down. It made me feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe I was being a bit paranoid, but I thought he might have followed us, and thankfully my mom called us over and told us that her room was ready. We left the lobby and went to our room shortly afterwards. We left the hotel to go meet family. I forgot about the man for the rest of the day. We returned at about 7:00, and my mom told us that we could go swimming in the hotel pool. We all went to our room, changed, and went to the pool. A few minutes after we got into the water, the same man from before walked in and sat down. He was wearing jeans and a sweater, so he definitely wasn't going swimming again. We didn't think much of it until I could see that my mom was visibly worried. She pointed him out to me, and she said that if he didn't leave within 5 minutes, we needed to go back to our rooms. 5 minutes passed, and he was still there, so we got our things and left. By then, it was close to 8 o'clock. We had brought a rented movie to watch, so we planned to watch that and go straight to bed. I noticed that my mom was a little on edge because of the man who'd been watching us, and I got a little more worried myself. Halfway through the movie, my mom got up to get into the shower while she was in there. Someone knocked on the door and said housekeeping. I thought it was weird that the cleaning staff would come this late, but we needed another towel. So I answered the door. I wish I hadn't been so stupid. It was the same creepy man. He gave me a smile and a little wave. I just stood there kind of motionless. My mind automatically went to the worst possible situation: kidnapping, rape, torture. I heard the water in the shower turn off. He stood there as well for a moment, and then he spoke. "How was your swim at that moment?" My mom came out of the shower, saw the man at the door, pulled me back, and slammed the door. She locked it, then she called the front desk from our hotel phone to report the guy. I told her to just call the police, but she didn't listen. She then requested we switch rooms. I then heard footsteps stomping down the hallway away from our room. Thankfully, the guy had left. After that, we switched hotel rooms and didn't see the guy again during our stay. Have you ever gotten an uneasy feeling staying in a hotel room, especially by yourself? Likely not, and I also doubt you've ever been in a hotel room by yourself. But when I was a kid, I always got scared. Sleeping in hotel rooms would be somebody standing there. My fear not only drove me crazy, it drove my parents crazy, as I would always insist that I would sleep between them until I was around 9 or 10 years old. Anyway, eventually I had to grow up, or at least give off the impression, and started sleeping in my own bed. Sharing the bed with my sister. Now I'm 24 years old, living on my own, and have to take a lot of business-related trips for my job on one particular out-of-town trip. I was staying at Comfort in North Carolina with all the expenses paid by my job. Of course, I was in the area for a meeting with an office in a different town, and Inn was my home for the night. It was across the street from some big car dealership. That's all I remember about the surroundings anyway. I was off the next day, so I could look forward to just relaxing in the hotel and watching a couple movies. I was ironically watching the first Saw movie. And I swear, during the scene where Adam was hearing sounds in his apartment, my childhood paranoia started to come back for a bit, as I thought I heard little crackling type noises coming from inside the closet. Being 24, I told myself that I had to get over this nonsensical childish fear. Simply raised the volume on the movie and tried to ignore it. At the same time, I popped 2 sleeping pills into my mouth so that I'd be wiped out by the time the movie was over. Eventually, I flipped off the TV and rolled over onto my side to finally get some shut-eye. That was when the crackling noises became apparent again. It wasn't constant or anything. It was just like once every minute or so I'd hear this crackling type noise that I just can't describe coming from the closet. It wasn't happening too frequently to really bother me, and the sleeping pills were knocking me out at that point. So I was out within like 10 minutes. The next thing I remember, woke to the sound of cloth being wrestled around. I sprang to an upright position, but it was literally too dark to even see within a few feet in front of me. After I flipped on the bedside light there, I saw somebody dressed in all black with a hood over his head, probably 6'5", 250 pounds, rummaging through my bag. I screamed at the top of my lungs, and in response, he fled the room. He had stolen my wallet and my watch, but he had also created a last memory that only digs deeper into a very large childhood fear of mine. I have never heard a story about anything like this on the news or anything, so for something like this to happen to a person like me, somebody who had such an odd, specific fear as a child, was simply catastrophic to me. When I was 17, I started to develop some beef with my dad. There was a huge hothead. Tensions would grow worse through the years, and it got to the point that I would commonly have to leave for the night after getting into huge fights with my dad about personal things that I won't talk about. Sometimes I would stay at a friend's house or check into a hotel. It was May 9th of 2015. I was 21 years old, and after another huge scene back at home with my dad, I had to get out of there for my own good. I checked into a nearby hotel, the Quality Inn and Suites. It was literally half a mile from my house. I'd be throwing away a little less than $100 for it. But I had nowhere else to go. It was early at this time around. Usually these outbursts happen around nighttime. It was like 4 o'clock, so I decided to just hang out by the outdoor pool and clear my head. It was funny. And it wasn't like we lived in some huge vacation destination of a town. My room was in the middle of the hall on the 2nd floor. I had no idea why they'd given me that room, since it seems like I was one of the only few people staying in the hotel. I hung out in my room after the pool for a bit. That's when there was a very light tapping on the door. I waited for someone to yell housekeeping, but they never did, therefore I ignored it, and to my surprise, even though I had the do not disturb sign on the door handle, I heard the beep of the lock on the door, and then I heard the door slowly opening. I called out, "No thank you, not right now." I couldn't see the employee at the door because there was a wall that blocked the view of the door from the... Was a Oz and I repeated myself, growing a bit curious. Suddenly, I got up to actually go follow them and tell them that that was rude when I stepped into the hall. I looked to my right, nobody. I looked to my left, and at the end of the hall, I saw the right leg of a woman turning the left corner further down the hall before disappearing. How did she get there so fast? I wondered. I ran down to the end of the hall, and that's when I heard another door closing when I turned the corner. Nobody, just maybe 20 closed unoccupied. Hotel doors. I was so confused and honestly a bit freaked out. I went down to the front desk to complain about the rude employee. The woman at the counter said that must be Rosa. She said she would question her about slamming the door later on. Thanked the woman and then went out to eat at the nearby TGI Fridays down the road. When I got back to the room, I was on the phone talking to my mom, who said that I shouldn't come back because my dad was still super pissed. I entered my room and told her how depressed I was with all this fighting. And she understood. When I hung up, it was only 8 o'clock. I wanted the night to be over. I brushed my teeth, watched a little TV, and went to sleep at around 9 o'clock. I woke to a noise. At first, I didn't know what it was. I rubbed my eyes, sat up, and listened. You have to let them in. There was somebody standing at the left edge of my bed, towering over me. Screamed and felt like throwing up at the same time. It was a dreadful, horrifying feeling. The person then grabbed around my throat and started repeating the words. You piece of it. Was an older woman with a weak grip. I was able to escape easily. I ran to the door of the room. I heard her following me, but she stopped at the door when I ran down the halls to the front desk. The woman at the front desk admitted that one of the employees had lost one of her master keys that had access to all the rooms in the hotel, something they were obligated to report to the head of the hotel. I was furious. Of course, I got a refund, gave some info to the cops, and then went home that night where my dad actually showed something close to sympathy after I some info to the cops. And then went home that night where my dad actually showed something close to sympathy after which that I couldn't understand. Their sinister grins widened as they revealed sharp, glinting knives. Panic consumed me.